talk, Getting Started with GraphQL. Before starting, I would like to congratulate the Hackathon team for organizing such a wonderful hackathon in such a short span of time. Well, in this talk, I will give you an introduction to GraphQL. I'll explain you the difference between REST and GraphQL APIs, and then we will learn GraphQL concepts by playing around with the GitHub GraphQL API. Since this is a recorded talk, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them on Twitch or add your questions on this doc. I'll try to answer all your questions. Hello, my name is Harshil Agrawal. I am a major league hacking coach. I love to talk about open and healthy internet and build community, and that is what I do as a Mozilla representative. I recently joined Archimedes as a developer advocate. At Archimedes, we are building a platform for developers like you to showcase your work, be it projects or blogs or code contributions. We have a lot of exciting things coming up, so do sign up. So let's start with understanding what is GraphQL. This is the definition given on the GraphQL.org website. If you try to read it, you might find it a bit complex to understand. Let's break it down. GraphQL is a query language for APIs. With GraphQL, you can query your data and get the information that you are looking for. GraphQL is a schema definition language, and it helps in building the APIs in a structured way. This helps in providing a complete and understandable description. With GraphQL, we, the client, can exactly get what we need. There is no underfetching or overfetching. You will better understand this once we'll look at examples. With GraphQL, you can easily evolve your API. You can add new fields to your types, and this still won't break your application. To summarize, GraphQL is a strongly typed query language. It only provides what is asked for. We can easily evolve our API without bothering about the versions. And GraphQL has powerful developer tools. We can fetch data with REST as well. So why do we need GraphQL? Well, in this section, I'll explain you two major differences between REST and GraphQL. The first difference we are going to talk about is the data that we get from these different APIs. Let us understand this with an example. We asked our friend Joey Tribbiani to buy some clothes. Joey, being Joey, buys everything out there in the store. This is similar to people buying tons of toilet papers, even though they don't need it. REST behaves in a similar manner. REST will provide you all the information, not just what you asked for. Let's take a more technical example to understand this. Now Joey asked to build an e-commerce website. For that, we created a collection called products, which has the following fields. For the landing page of the website, we decided to show a list of products with the name, image, and description. We make the API call to get the information, and this is what the response looks like. We get everything even though we didn't need it. This is how REST APIs are. Now let us look. How does GraphQL solve this? Well, Joey really does not care about the time it will take to build the website. So we experiment a bit with GraphQL and try to build a GraphQL wrapper around our API. So in the schema, we have a query named query products, which gives us the information of the products. When we execute this query with these fields mentioned, this is what we get as the response. Here, we only get what we asked for. There is no extra information that is provided to us, and hence we don't need to bother about it. Jason, the author of WP GraphQL, tweeted this just a few days back. This explains the difference between REST and GraphQL very nicely. The other difference that I want to explain is the API endpoint. In REST APIs, we have different endpoints for different entities, while in GraphQL, we have only one endpoint. Continuing an example of the e-commerce store, Joey now wants to have a page where we can show the information as well as the products ordered by the user. So we have a collection user with the following fields and the same products collection with the following fields. The client will first make an API call through the user endpoint and get the user information. The client will then make a different API call to the products endpoint to fetch the information of products that the user ordered. So if you see, we are making two different API calls. But with GraphQL, our application makes a single call to the API endpoint and gets the desired response. With one API call, we are able to make multiple requests. So let's have a look at how this query might look like. So here we have a query named getUser which gives us the user information. We are passing an argument over here, ID, to this query to get the information of the particular user. Since orders is the list of products a user ordered, we are passing on ID, name and price to get this information. Now if you look at the result, with only one call, we get the information of both the user and the products. Now let us summarize it. With GraphQL, we get what we need. With only one request call, we can execute multiple queries, while it is not the case for REST. We can do a rapid product iteration, and GraphQL has powerful tools. Now let us look how we can execute these queries and mutations in GraphQL and understand these concepts. For this, we will be playing with the GitHub GraphQL API. You can also play around with it and learn how to run queries and mutations. Go to the link mentioned and sign in with your GitHub account and you will see something similar to this. So this is a GraphQL playground where you can play with the API, see the documentation and try out queries before adding it to your code. Let us delete everything over here. And get the information of the user that is logged in. So we pass on the user query that takes an argument login and provide the user name. Now let's get the name for this user. You can see immediately that the query has exactly the same shape as the result. This is essential to GraphQL because you always get what you expect and the server knows what fields the client is asking for. Now let us try to get the repositories as well. When we do repositories, and let's try and execute this. When we execute this, we get an error missing pagination boundaries. With GraphQL, whenever you want to query for a list of information, you need to provide the pagination arguments. That is first, which will provide the first n entries in the database, or last, which will give you the n entries. Let us get the first two repositories, and when we execute it now, we don't get an error. Let's extend this query further. Let's find the information for the people who are following me, as well as the people I am following. So let's do followers. Here we'll be looking for only the first two followers. We want the name, and again let's say we want to see their first two repositories. So we'll do repositories, pass on the argument first, we'll do something similar to get the information of the people I am following. Instead of followers, we'll do following, and since it's not showing us any signs that there might be an error, let's execute it. Wait, so our query gets resolved and we get the information that we asked. Now if you observe the query over here, we have a lot of fields that are repeated. We asking for the name, the repositories, and the name of the repository. And that's similar for getting the information for myself as well. To avoid this, we can use fragments. A GraphQL fragment is a shared piece of query. It's a shared piece of query logic. So let's create a fragment and see how it can be used. We'll give this and the name user info on user. It's important to note that the component after the on clause is designated for the type we are selecting from. Here, the nodes have type user. The nodes here have the type user, and hence we are creating a query on type user. So what all information we need? We need the name, and we need the repositories, the first two repositories. Yeah. So now we will user info. Similarly, we'll pass it on over here. And we'll also do it over here. Now let's see if our code breaks or not. Well, we get the response. It's similar to the previous response that we got. So if you observe over here now, a query becomes more simple and the complexity is reduced. Let us say I also want the ID for the followers. So I can simply pass on the ID and still my query gets executed. So this is how fragments work. Now before moving on to mutations, I would like to show you how you can use variables with queries. Instead of passing my username directly over here, we will use variables. So since this is a type query, we'll say query and we'll name this query as user query, right? And we'll give it user name, and this should be of type string. Username, and we will assign the value of the username in the variables section. Let's try and execute this. Awesome, right? So friends, that's how you run queries in GraphQL. Now let's talk about mutations. With mutations, you can create, update, and delete the data. Writing mutations is similar to writing queries. Let us create a repository. To create a repository, we need to have the create a repository mutation. So let's just see create repository. Now this mutation takes two arguments. It takes two inputs. To be more precise, the first is the name of the repository. Let's just call this HQ talk repo, and the next will be the visibility. This can be either public or private. So let's just make it public right now. And this mutation also has a payload. So let us see what it has. So it gives us the repository and the name of the repository. Let's execute this. And we successfully created a repository. To verify this, let's again run a query to check if we successfully did it or not. We'll do user, we'll pass in the username, the repository over here will pass on the name, and that is HQ talk repo, and let's just see when it was created. So yeah, you can see the output over here. So since I created it today, that's 26th of March, I am getting the time zone and the information. So that is how mutations work in GraphQL. So let us look again what we covered. So we covered query. We saw how with query we can fetch data. We also saw how we can use variables with queries. We saw how mutations can be executed. How we can pass the inputs in mutations, and we saw an example of by creating a repository, and we saw fragments and how we can use fragments. Before coming to an end, I would like to help you by providing you the resources that help me learn GraphQL. So How to GraphQL is an amazing source where you can learn how you can build GraphQL powered applications both on the server and on the front end side. Harshil also has some great content to use GraphQL APIs for different frameworks like Angular, Vue, React. Apollo also has a good documentation for GraphQL, and there are some amazing courses on front-end masters that will teach you how you can use GraphQL. That's it from my end. Thank you so much. If you need any help with GraphQL or anything, feel free to ping me on Discord. I'll be more than happy to help you. Happy hacking!